Hey there guys, welcome back to another deck profile with yours truly, Paul Reisman. Today we're taking a look at the Tina Alice aggro list that I ran in our recent feature match. Without further ado, let's jump right into things.
This session brought to you by Odyssey Games for pre-orders and sealed product, CCG Prime for tons of singles and supplies, Cardo Doko for international rulers looking for products, and FowlLibrary.com for articles and wonderful deck lists, as well as our guest lecturer members King Pearlshine, Vite Ramen, Mognite, and Darren Noblock. Class is in session.
Alright guys, we are looking over Tina and Alice. Tina obviously is one of the 7 stars, and she has teamed up with Alice, the ally of fairies. Which for all intents and purposes is Alice, Girl in the Lake. This is the Ascended version, which is what we got as part of the Memoria pack, so this is the one I'm using because it's just strictly better. The good thing about this, and it's, you know, the way it is, right? This extension rule gives Fairy Alice imperishable. Also, it reduces her judgment cost by 2. So instead of this reading Judgment for 7, it's going to read Judgment for 5, and then you can pay even 1 less beyond that for each fairy you control. That does in fact count J-Rulers. So when Tina does contract with her Dominatus, she becomes a 7 stars fairy, as you will notice. Speaking of Dominatus, this is the one of the main linchpins of the deck. It's got quick cast and mythic. When it comes in, you get a fairy token and you draw a card, and then depending on the number of fairies you have on the field, that will reduce the seal value, allowing you to contract even faster. When she is on the field, all other fairies, all fairies in general, including her, get +2/+2, and then whenever you play a virtuous skill, you get a light fairy resonator token with flying. It's a 4/4, and then you buff everything on the field with a permanent +2/+2. That's pretty nice. It doesn't even have to be fairies you control. It's J/resonators, period. Right, so that's pretty nice. So in the event you're playing a Tina deck without Fairy Alice, if you're playing something like Niklaus, your flowers can get bigger too if you play a virtuous skill, which is nice. So Dominatus, really important. I'm playing 4 Virtuous Crusade. This is your draw spell, plus it allows you to generate 2 bodies on field at quick cast speed. Very solid card. Basically, it's the beginning of the fairy tale, but it's fairy specific, and it's specific to Tina as well. We're playing 4 Meteor Dive. This is the win button of the deck, and so when do you want this in your hand? Either at the beginning of the game or you want to draw into it as soon as possible. This is just the win con of the entire deck. J resonators that are fairies gain swiftness until end of turn, and if you play this on a J ruler for free, that J/resonator will gain +10/+10 Eternal and Barrier until end of the turn. So that's really helpful, especially when you have this amazing J-Ruler Alice, Paladin of Unwavering Hope, being a card that's just going to swing in for a ton of damage. It's going to be flying, so it's going to be hard to stop it. So just a really strong card. Now to help us get to this win condition, we have 4 Fairy Twins, which essentially is pay 1, get 2 4/4s, which is really nice. You also have the Fairy Soldier, which is effectively your Gwyber of the deck. If you're an old school player, this is Gwyber now. If you're old yet, this is a fairy though. Has natural swiftness, which Gwyber did not have, and it also has Drain, and it gets cheaper when you rest fairies that you control. And then for all of the fairies that you reduce the cost, you put 2 +1/+1 counters on it. Pretty straightforward. It just buffs your field. It's just kind of an amazing card in general. I'm playing 2 Fairy Wayfinder. This card is not not the end-all be-all of the deck, but sometimes you want to draw additional cards to refill your hand if you're going into the late game, and your opponent is just dirtling to the point where you can play this card. It's a little bit slower, but sometimes the deck runs out of cards. I'm playing 2 Perrin. Now, this is not something I would normally play in an aggro deck, but the fact that she's a fairy is really helpful. She's still a 4/4 flyer. She can produce additional will, which is also really helpful in case you want to play this on top of a Virtuous Crusade. You're ramping ahead in terms of your fairies for your Fairy Soldier. This is kind of useful. It's not the most aggressive tool that I would use, but it does also have that nice banish effect to prevent damage done to all my fairies, which is really nice. I'm also playing 3 Flame Sprite. This is not the best image, but it's a little older of a card, so that's okay. This is really helpful for board control, because you can get a significant amount of damage on board, and then Flame Sprite is just there to clear the way of your opponent's flyers, etc. It's got swiftness, and it's in red, which is primarily what this deck is focused on, so in playtesting against other variants of this deck, I really liked Flame Sprite for its ability to win in the mirror match. It's really helpful for getting rid of stuff continually and reliably. Also in the deck, I'm playing 3 Flashing Smile. This deck has a really hard time getting rid of boards. There is a virtuous skill that Tina has, but unfortunately it relies on your opponent doing actions for it to be useful and wiping the board. I wanted something a little bit more reactive and flexible. Flashing Smile is that card for white. It is 2 white, which is not helpful sometimes because you are an aggro deck, but if you do get a little bit of a slow roll, this thing is really, really helpful. Plus, it adds an additional card to your hand, and the damage can pile up fairly quickly. So this card is very strong for this reason and kind of changed the trajectory of the deck. I'm also playing 2 of the Girl Staring At. This is really helpful, again, if you're getting a little bit of a slow start. This is a good way of preventing your opponent from having abilities, or if they have flying and you want to get around their stuff, this is a way of stealing their flying for the turn, and it's just really helpful for that reason. So if your opponent for some reason is discarding cards from your hand, you get a free token. Honestly, it's mostly there to make sure that your opponent's stuff doesn't have effects. I'm in red. This is a really good addition to the deck for that reason. Kilo of Fossil Girl in the City. It's the only red card that we have that can get rid of additions or stop enter effects. So this card is really useful for that reason, and I think it's a staple in the deck. I'm playing 2 Yggdrasil. This has been kind of a point of contention for other pilots of decks like these new decks that we received. Do we play new Yggdrasil? I've settled on playing 2, mostly because it's just, I have the room for it in the way I've constructed the deck. It's really nice to be able to get my my regalia online if I don't end up seeing it. So it's just effectively 2 more copies of my regalia. Plus it allows me to play that regalia on my opponent's turn, so it doesn't feel bad to play in an aggro version of a regalia list like this. It's really helpful to just have that regalia online and just get it going. And again, I have the room for it, so I played this. Solid card. If you don't want to play it, that's okay too. This card is just really useful for me. We have a lot of aggro at locals, and I think we're seeing a lot of red creeping up into the metagame with cards in the Brandheart package. So I'm playing Witch. And I'm in red, so I'm playing Witch. Your red stuff turns off. It's hilarious. And then just for kind of kicks and giggles, I'm playing King's Hopeful Gleam. This is a good way of just making sure that with a smaller board, I can still get in some pretty significant damage. With just 2 tokens, or just 2 fairies on the field, this is 2400 damage, plus I added 2 cards to my hand, which is really nice. So, I mean, this definitely has applications. It is a fairy, and so it can be played off of Perrin for cheaper, which is also really nice. So just keeping that in mind, this card might have a little bit more of an application than I gave it, but I like this card. It's fun, and it's just a really solid card in general. In the Magic Stone deck, I'm playing 2 Heat Ray and 4 of the 4 Sea Stones for my colors, and then I'm playing Awakened Magic Stone of Earth. So when I remembered this card existed, I definitely had to go into the red direction, because if you were able to flip your Fairy Alice for free, this is just free will. And I think an aggro deck really appreciates getting all of the will it possibly can. The 300 sucks a little bit, taking that damage right off the go, but in general, I don't really care that much. I have Drain. I am an aggro deck, so my life isn't nearly as important unless I'm losing. which, you know, if I'm losing, it's because I overextended anyway, so I'm not playing the deck optimally. So I'm okay with taking 300 damage if it means I get to have extra will and interaction. It's really helpful, especially when I have more mid-rangey cards like Flashing Smile that I want to play on my opponent's turn. If I do end up doing Judgment and refunding that will, Flashing Smile all of a sudden is a 1 stone card. Very nice. So this card completely brought the deck together, which I think is super fun. Anyway, guys, let me know what you think about the Tina Alice list. I know it's an aggro deck, and so it's kind of straightforward, but there were some choices in here that I had to think about, especially when I was looking at rounding out the deck for a more diverse metagame. So let me know what you think down in the comment section down below. Are you going to play Fairy Alice? Are you glad that fairies are finally buffed and back? I know I am. Let us know what you think down in the comment section down below. Otherwise, guys, this has been Paul. I'll catch you next time.